Our number is 866-WE-BE-BIG. Our website, Rick and Bubba, spell out the word and.com. All the information about the show is there. Russell Moore has agreed to join us. We're thankful for that. He is the president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention. And he has, of course, he's the 8th president there for the Southern Baptist Convention, and he joins us now. Dr. Moore, welcome to the Rick and Bubba Show. How are you today?
Hey, Rick, doing great. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
For taking time to be with us. You know, we this election coming up, you know, when you talk about, and we do secular entertainment, meaning we're on secular stations and TV and radio, so we're not what we call over in Christian radio, even though it's a wonderful thing. We're Christians who do radio. And so we're out there, so we kind of see sometimes sides of things from both sides because we are evangelical and biblical worldview enough that you get into those topics, but we also, I think, have a great opportunity to speak to people who may not share our beliefs, which has been a great place to be. And so here we go into this election where it's going to be Trump and Hillary Clinton, barring some weird happening at either convention. And I know that not the evangelical vote are divided on this. There's not agreement. I kind of. Bubba and I were kidding around about the movie Civil War, where you have the superheroes divide up, and you got Iron Man's bunch, and over here you got Captain America's bunch, and on most things they're on the same page, but right now they're having a disagreement, and you can almost see the influential evangelical leadership lining up, even within the Southern Baptists. They don't agree, and so I saw that you had put out some op-eds about Donald Trump, and for what I'll let you explain yourself, to where you think that is not someone that as a Christian should get the vote, and I'll let you explain that or tell me where I'm wrong on that, because that's what I thought I was reading on the writings you were putting out and some of the things you were saying.
Well, my big concern is not 2016 in terms of who's up and who's down. My big concern is the witness of the church coming out of 2016 and into 2017. And so I'm really concerned when I see evangelical Christians who've been saying for 40 years, character matters, personal morality matters, who are willing to toss all of that aside because of a political campaign. I think that's really, really damaging to the gospel. It's damaging to the witness of the church. And that's also true when you have people who are just simply able to wink to the side the race baiting, the misogyny that we've seen in this campaign, that in any previous year one would think would have been shocking to the core. That's what disturbs me. And so I think we're coming out of this. We're going to come out of this campaign with the question of, are evangelical Christians, were we just hypocrites when we said we believed the things we said we believed before? And if so, we should apologize for having said them. And said, really, what our values are about is just winning.
Dr. Moore, I think we all agree on the fact that ultimately we are responsible to God for our opinions and how we vote, not to man, not to even our fellow citizens. But there is a side to a lot of us that feel like there are no perfect candidates. And that, election after election after election, we have to choose the less of the two evils. So in a case like that where, in this election, as you framed it up, is headed that way, you would urge someone not to vote for Donald Trump because of moral issues. But what should we do if we are patriotic, if our family has served in the military and we feel like we have a obligation as a citizen to vote also?
Well, my urging here is not to vote or not vote or to vote for any particular candidate. I don't in any year ever endorse a candidate. What I am saying is, if you will say that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are not morally disqualified from the office of the presidency, then you do not have a category for anyone being morally disqualified for the office of the presidency. And so the question then becomes, what as a Christian do I give my approval to? And I think as a Christian, I believe the Scripture teaches that we cannot overcome evil with more evil. We can't do evil simply because a good result will come from that. Romans 12 teaches that. And we also cannot give Romans 1 hearty approval that which is wrong and which is evil. And I think that's what we see this year in this election. You see that with Hillary Clinton, who is dogged in her defense of taking the lives of vulnerable unborn children, of violating religious liberty, of all sorts of ethical lapses in her own life and career. And you see this in Donald Trump, in someone who has been playing around with some of the vilest race baiting people in this country. Somebody who has ridiculed people who believe in sexual morality and in biblical sexual morality, and someone who has openly boasted about the kind of degradation of culture that conservatives, we were the ones who were saying for all of these years, this is what does damage to people and does damage to families. And so now what some are suggesting we do is to not only put someone before our children for the next 4 years or 8 years and say, this is your leader, this is someone who is promoting these things from the Oval Office, but also to say this is the face of conservatism, not just for the next 4 to 8 years, but the way that presidents change things. This is what conservatism now is for a generation until there's some massive tumult and turnaround.
I want to ask you this, because this is where I think you're being inconsistent as a brother in Christ, and I'm just going to hold you accountable on this. I went back and looked at you and Al Mohler, because I agree with everything you said. I do from a biblical standpoint. We still haven't answered Bubba's question, though, then what are we supposed to do? But let me take you back to this. You and Mohler were on a panel telling evangelicals that Mitt Romney being a Mormon was something that shouldn't keep us from supporting him as president. And you do know what the Mormons believe. They believe blasphemy. I mean, they take away the deity of Christ. They've got Lucifer and Jesus as spiritual brothers, God with a wife. One day I can be God if I'm good enough and have my own planet, and we're supposed to be okay with that?
Yes, because we don't have a religious test for office. That's not what I'm arguing for.
But isn't that immoral to say that Jesus Christ is not God?
But we do have a basis of character in the same way that if I'm hiring someone.
So if I believe in blasphemy, as long as I am nice and do good things, then evangelical followers of Christ can support putting a Mormon in the highest office in the land, fulfilling their own prophecy. But don't go after a guy that says he's a Presbyterian that goes to church twice a year and has had a rough road.
This is not someone who's just had a rough road.
Well, I agree with that, but where do you say that Romney is okay? And I wish you just say they both weren't okay. I could live with that.
Because if I'm running a hardware store and I'm interviewing somebody who's going to be working in that hardware store, I'm not necessarily going to care whether or not that person agrees with me on the gospel. I'm going to hope to have those conversations about the gospel and hope to eventually win him over. But I am going to say, is this somebody who has the kind of character that I can trust?
Well, you and I must define character different, because the thing that we're supposed to stand with is Christ, and we're supposed to go against anything that comes against the true gospel. And I don't have any problem with what you said concerning Trump. I actually agree with most of what you said, but I'm very confused by how y'all acted in 2012, and that's why you got a confused voting base. Because in one thing you said, hey, at the end of the day, we got to go with the lesser of two evils. These are the choices we have. And now suddenly, when it comes to Trump, that's saying you don't think you could get in the Oval Office and lead Trump to Christ?
I'm the guy who was lambasting evangelicals tying themselves to Mormonism with the Glenn Beck Reclaiming America.
Well, you didn't do it when it came to Romney. You didn't do it when it came to Romney.
I didn't do it when it came to Romney because Romney was not someone who was claiming to be a religious figure at all. And Romney was somebody who did meet the qualifications.
Do you know the prophecy of the Latter-day Saints? They thought this was prophecy about to be fulfilled.
I don't know that that's true. I don't know.
Well, I asked him on their interview. I said, "Do you believe that Israel is still the promised land?" He said, "Well, you have to ask somebody above me on that one." We asked him those hard questions. You didn't.
Do you see, Dr. Moore, where we would see that as a conflict between those two?
No, I don't, because I think you're confusing kingdoms here, and you're confusing the question of whether or not somebody ought to be in theological leadership or whether there is a category for moral leadership in terms of what someone is going to be able to do based upon what he has said. And so with Mitt Romney, you have somebody who said what I said about Mitt Romney at the time was what I'm grateful for is that Mitt Romney at that time anyway was not trying to erase differences between Mormons and Christians. And he's coming in and saying, I'm a member of my church can speak for itself, but here's my life, and here's the way that I live my life, and here are the things that I'm going to do as president.
So in other words, we would support a Hindu president and a Buddhist president.
Well, I think we have no religious test for office. I think the question is you're going to have to look and see how do these religious beliefs affect what it is that the person is going to do.
Well, but as long as they were moral, you wouldn't be concerned with their spiritual reason for getting there.
It's not just moral; it's a question of character and what it is that the person is going to do.
All right, we'll come back. Hang on, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. More with Russell Moore right after this. Stay close. Rick and Bubba. We've only got 7 more minutes with Dr. Russell Moore with the Southern Baptist Convention. He is the president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. He's put out some op-eds and discussions about evangelicals and the vote for Donald Trump. We've discussed some of that. We brought up the inconsistency, in our opinion, with that it was okay to vote for a Mormon candidate because, and Dr. Moore, you said because he was moral. If I've gotten that correct, going to the break.
I'm saying there's a character issue there, and it'd be the same thing if you applied what you're saying here. Then you would say that no Christian should ever hire a non-Christian to serve in, or you would say
no. I just find it inconsistent. I found it inconsistent that you say that leading the free world under with a Mormon core belief system is okay, but a cultural Christian who has lived a life that looks like morality is in question, that would do more damage than that.
It's not just someone who's lived a life who says morality is in question. It's someone who has celebrated immorality and cultural degradation and continues to do so.
Now, give me an example of that, because I hear you say that, and I'm really trying to work this out. I do find it inconsistent with 2012, and I've made that point. But let's now get back to Trump. So tell me where does he celebrate it? Where is he?
He openly boasts of his numerous sexual immoralities. He has degraded women repeatedly. He is turning conservatism into a live Howard Stern show. That is, I don't think the beginning of this. I think it's the end point of this.
So you don't buy. Hey, I'm a work in progress. I'm a friend to the church. Liberty University says.
You have someone who has said, I have nothing for which to ask forgiveness from God.
Well, now, he did try to clarify that, and that was something to do. He didn't understand communion. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is an evangelical Christian. I'm trying to understand the point that you're making, that now when it comes to the presidency, we're not trying to have a theological religious test. I tend to try to have one if it's all possible.
If you're interviewing a radio producer there,
yeah,
and the radio producer says, "Hey, I'm not a Christian. I'm a whatever, and here's my job performance, and here are my references, and here's who I am." And then you have another person who comes in and says, yeah, I'm somebody who's broken my vows, I've broken my promises, I'm going to speak about the women in your radio studio in these ways, I'm going to do all of these things, and you say, okay, I'm not going to hire you. That's not an inconsistency. You're saying, I'm going to hire somebody who's qualified for this job and somebody who is not going to bring down the moral temperature and the ability to work together in our studio.
So if we have a Muslim who says, I do not believe in radical Islam, I'm not about jihad, I'm not about fada, I'm just living a good moral life as a good Muslim, you're okay with it being president but not Donald Trump?
Well, the question is with a Muslim, what I'm going to try to do is to talk to someone about the gospel of Jesus
and you
Christ.
can't do that with Trump. You can't do that with Trump. You don't think you can evangelize Donald Trump?
Are you going to let me talk or not?
Well, I want. You just said something that I need to respond to. You can't reach Donald Trump, but you can Mitt Romney and a Muslim.
With Donald Trump, you have major evangelical leaders pronouncing this person to be someone who is, in fact, a Christian and on our side, as Trump himself is saying, which is confusing the gospel of Jesus Christ to the point that the very word evangelical no longer means anything. And it also brings about a very credible charge of hypocrisy.
And you don't think you don't think you and Mueller showed hypocrisy endorsing a Mormon?
Absolutely not. For the same reason,
I disagree with that.
If I were a Baptist in the early,
I disagree with that.
I could vote with Thomas Jefferson and not let him teach Sunday school.
Dr. Moore, let me ask you this, and we'll
well, Trump's not trying to teach Sunday school. He's trying to be president.
Yeah, we see it in a little different way, but I understand what you're trying to say. But let me get back to the where the rubber hits the road for us now.
Mm-hmm.
What are we supposed to do on Election Day? We're believers. I absolutely see what is happening to our country through our court system, and we're going to have a president who is likely going to pick one, maybe more. We know one, maybe two, or even three Supreme Court justices that could radically change our world even more. What are we supposed to do?
There's 1 minute to the hard break. Tell the evangelicals what's the right thing to do in your opinion.
Well, I think the issue is here we've already lost this election, no matter what happens. You cannot have a pro-life movement in the sort of atmosphere and the sort of moral atmosphere that you're given with Donald Trump, and you cannot have one in the atmosphere of Hillary Clinton. So regardless of what happens in November, genuine gospel-centered evangelical Christians are going to have to be the people in opposition for the next 4 years.
So, but should we not vote?
Well, I think there's some Christians. I mean, I leave that to the conscience of the individual Christian.
I understand, but what do you think?
I think some Christians are going to conscientiously object from having to choose two immoral choices. I think some Christians are going to talk themselves into some lesser of two evils argument. And I think some Christians are going to vote for a third party or write in another candidate as a stand of principle, and then mobilize and get ready for 2020.
What are you going to do?
I don't talk about my own vote.
Okay.
And,
all right. Well, that would have been a good interview if I didn't ask. Because I believe that whatever you believe, you lead by example.
Dr. Moore, thank you.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you taking time to be with us. And we may not agree on everything, but we do. Hopefully we agree on what's most important, and that's evangelizing the world for Jesus Christ. Thank you, buddy. We'll be back bottom of the hour, 866 We Be Big. More of the Rick and Bubba show continues right after this.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.